You know, you walk into a public restroom, maybe at the airport, maybe at a mall, and there they are, right? Those hand dryers. Sometimes they're loud, sometimes they just kind of whir. We don't really give them a second thought to it. But what if I told you these seemingly everyday things are actually at the center of this huge, rapidly growing global market? So today, we're doing a deep dive into the global hand dryer market. Now, I know it might sound a bit niche,
A little bit, yeah.
but honestly, the numbers, the trends we found, they really tell a much bigger story about, well, about our world.
Right.
And our source material for this is a really comprehensive report from Cognitive Market Research.
Yeah.
It's packed with some fascinating growth figures and projections.
Right. And our goal here, our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack what's driving this, well, this remarkable surge. We want to understand the why behind it all, not just the big numbers, but why are some regions adopting them so much faster than others? And ultimately, what can this simple device actually tell us about shifting global priorities? Things like hygiene, sustainability, efficiency.
Okay, so let's start with that big picture then, because the scale here is genuinely surprising. The global hand dryer market, back in 2021, it was already pretty substantial. We're talking just under $1 billion. $919.22 million, to be exact.
Which is already quite a lot.
It is. But get this. It's projected to explode, basically, to over $3.6 billion. That's $3,683.89 million by 2033.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's growing at, was it, an impressive annual rate of 12.264%.
Okay. That's a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of over 12%. That's really significant.
It's huge. Quite an unexpected boom for something we hardly notice, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And, what's fascinating here is how several really big global trends are not just sort of bumping into each other, but actively speeding this whole thing up.
Right.
It's definitely more than just like a general increase in hygiene awareness, although that's part of it. But think about the push after the pandemic, right?
Right.
Touchless technology in public spaces became almost, well, expected, non-negotiable for a lot of places. And then you've got the whole green building movement. This isn't just about feeling good about being eco-friendly. It's a direct response to stricter corporate ESG goals, environmental, social governance.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so hand dryers, which generally have a lower long-term environmental footprint compared to constantly restocking paper towels, they're actually becoming kind of mandatory for certain building certifications.
So it's baked into the standards now, in some cases.
Exactly. And then, there's the bottom line. For a lot of facilities, hotels, offices, airports, they just represent a really significant cost-saving measure compared to buying, storing, and disposing of endless paper towels.
Makes sense.
So yeah, it's not just a few trends. It's really a fundamental shift in how we're designing and managing public spaces now.
That's a really powerful mix of factors. Okay, so with that kind of massive global growth, are there specific places where this is really taking off? Like, where are the hot spots? Let's maybe do a quick geographical tour, see where this simple device is making the biggest impact.
Good idea. Let's start maybe in North America. It's already a huge market, right? Holding a significant share. It grew from, about $264.7 million in 2021. And it's on track to go over $1 billion by 2033. That's $1,009.39 million. And the annual growth rate there is strong, too, nearly 12%, 11.674%.
So still double-digit growth in a mature market.
Exactly. And the U.S. is really driving most of that regional growth, over $765 million, projected by 2033. But Canada and Mexico are showing really strong momentum, too. Canada's CAGR is actually even higher at 12.67%.
Interesting. Okay, what about across the Atlantic? Europe.
Europe's another really substantial, well-established market. It generated over $365 million, 365.85 ends back in 2021. And it's expected to hit over $1.4 billion, $1,425.67 by 2033. The growth rate is pretty similar to North America, almost 12% annually, 11.949%.
Well, any standouts there?
Well, you've got the key players like Germany, the UK, they're big contributors. But what's kind of surprising is France. France actually surged with one of the highest regional growth rates, over 13.5%, 13.547%.
Wow, higher than the regional average. Why France, do you think?
Well, it likely reflects some significant public sector investments, maybe, and perhaps a stronger regulatory push towards environmental standards and infrastructure there.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and Italy's following a similar kind of pattern. Plus, the rest of Europe segment is also growing really impressively, around 13.3%, 13.355%.
Okay, so North America and Europe are strong, established, but still growing fast. But If those numbers are impressive, wait till we look east. You mentioned Asia Pacific is really...
Absolutely. The Asia-Pacific region is, well, it's experiencing what you can really only call exponential growth. It's eye-opening.
Okay, lay it on us.
Right. So the overall APAC region is expanding at a really remarkable annual rate, over 13.5%. 13.561%. It grew from nearly $175 million, 174.652 LNs in 2021, and it's projected to hit almost $780 million, 780.248 AMN by 2033.
Huge jump.
Massive. Now, China and Japan are obviously major contributors just because of their scale, but India really stands out. Its market is showing exceptional performance. It reflects the highest growth rate among the major economies there, over 14.6% annually, 14.605%.
14.6%. What's driving that in India specifically?
Well, this explosive growth, it's not just a number on a page, right?
Right.
It directly reflects things like rapid urbanization, massive infrastructure development, both commercial and public spaces, think new airports, malls, office buildings. And you've also got a burgeoning middle class that's demanding more modern, hygienic amenities.
Right, rising expectations.
Exactly. And just to add another layer, Singapore. Singapore actually recorded an even higher annual growth rate, over 15%. 15.264%.
15%.
Yeah, growing from about $5.8 million to nearly $30 million. It really highlights its role as like a regional hub for advanced building tech and standards.
An incredible growth story in Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
So we've covered the big established markets and the fastest growing region. What about other key emerging areas? Are we seeing similar, maybe slightly smaller scale patterns there?
We are, definitely. Take South America, for example. It's also showing a very healthy growth curve. The annual rate there is over 13.3%. 13.384%. It's growing from about $63 million, 63.426 EMA in 2021, to projected nearly $280 million, 279.976 EMA by 2033.
And within South America?
Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, they're all showing pretty dynamic gains within that region. Then you've got the Middle East, the hand dryer market there. It's smaller overall, but it's growing steadily. Over 10.7% annually, 10.745%. That takes it from roughly $35 million, 34.93 M in 2021 to over $120 million, 121.56 M by 2033.
Okay. Saudi Arabia is leading the region there in terms of market size. And the UAE is showing a particularly strong annual growth rate, nearly 12%, 11.952%.
Which probably links to their huge tourism and hospitality sectors, right? All those hotels and airports. Exactly. That's likely a big driver. And then finally, let's look at Africa. The market there is projected to reach over $67 million, 67.047 M by 2033. That's up from just over $15 million, 15.627 M in 2021. The overall annual growth rate is right around that global average, actually 12.264%.
Any particular countries?
Yeah, both Nigeria and South Africa seem to be following pretty similar growth patterns. And interestingly, the rest of Africa segment, so countries beyond those two, is showing a notable annual growth rate too, almost 12.7%, 12.686%. That suggests increasing infrastructure development is happening more broadly across the continent.
Wow. Okay, so we've done the world tour. We've seen a lot of pretty staggering numbers, some fascinating growth curves. But let's pull back a bit. What does this all really mean for you listening and for the bigger picture of how we think about public spaces? How do we connect all these dots?
Yeah, that's the key question, right? If we connect this back to that bigger picture, it's clear the global hand dryer market isn't just, ticking upwards. It's on this rapid upward trajectory.
Yeah.
And it's fueled by that combination of things we talked about earlier, stricter hygiene rules, the global green building movement pushing for sustainability.
Right, the ESG goals.
Exactly. And just this growing demand, really, for efficient, modern public sanitation solutions. People expect it more now. And the detailed figures, the regional breakdown we just did, it really reinforces that story. You see the market expanding fastest in those emerging economies in Asia and Latin America, places undergoing huge infrastructure build-outs and urbanization. But at the same time, North America and Europe, the more established markets, they're maintaining really strong demand too. It's just driven more by upgrades, modernization, and again, those green building initiatives filtering through.
So it's not just about putting more hand dryers everywhere. It's about a fundamental shift.
Exactly. A shift in how we approach public health and environmental impact in commercial and public spaces pretty much everywhere.
And looking ahead, the report pointed to something interesting for the future, didn't it? It's not just about the current drivers, but what's next for the technology itself.
Precisely. And this brings up a really important point, actually, about how continuous innovation can keep driving growth, even in what you might think of as a mature product category.
Like a hand dryer.
Like a hand dryer. The report really emphasizes that innovation think high-speed dryers that are even faster, more energy-saving models. Maybe even smarter dryers, perhaps with like IoT integration for tracking maintenance needs or usage patterns.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that kind of innovation is expected to accelerate global adoption even more in the coming years. It just shows that even a product we totally take for granted can still evolve technologically, and that evolution keeps its market dynamic and relevant to, modern needs and expectations.
It really is remarkable when you stop and think about it, how something as mundane as a hand dryer can be such a clear window into these massive global economic shifts, driven by, like you said, our changing collective needs, our environmental concerns. It's kind of a testament to how every product, no matter how small or simple it seems, really has a story to tell about our changing world.
And that, I think, is the real takeaway here. This whole deep dive into hand dryers, it kind of reveals our collective evolving values, doesn't it? Around public health, definitely. Around environmental responsibility, and around just technological efficiency, getting things done better, faster, maybe smarter. So maybe the next time you're drying your hands in a public restroom, just consider this for a second. What other everyday objects, things we barely notice, might be silently undergoing similar huge transformations right now, driven by these exact same global trends? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Welcome back to the deep dive. Ever stop to think about hand dryers? Probably not, right? Just a blast of air. But what if I told you that simple device is, well, part of this huge evolving global market? It's actually pretty complex, more than just convenience. It sits right at the intersection of public health, tech, and global economics. So today, our mission is to really dig into the evolving global hand dryer market. We're using insights from sources like Cognitive Market Research's latest report. We want to unpack the forces shaping this everyday tech and highlight what's maybe most important for you to know about something you maybe haven't thought twice about. Okay, so let's kick things off. What's really driving all this change in the market, especially, after the last few years?
Well, it's fascinating, actually. The post-pandemic world, it didn't just make people more aware of hygiene. It fundamentally shifted how they see these air dryers. They went from maybe being seen as a bit iffy, germ-wise, to being really key for contactless safety. So you see them everywhere now, right?
Yeah.
Hospitals, airports, malls, offices. Adopting touchless drying is all about cutting down cross-contamination. And it's not just germs. Sustainability, that's become a massive accelerator too. Hand dryers are almost like a symbol now, a visible sign that a place cares about its ESG goals.
Yeah.
Helps them cut carbon, cut paper waste.
Yeah, that environmental angle makes sense. But okay, here's where I think it gets really interesting. Beyond the green side, there's a strong pull for property managers, right?
Okay.
The economics of it.
Absolutely. For anyone managing buildings, the long-term cost efficiency is, well, it's significant. Think about it. No more buying paper towels, stocking them, getting rid of them. All those recurring costs, gone. We see places like university campuses, big train stations, places with loads of people. They're seeing real measurable savings by switching. Line of maintenance too.
Okay, so the motivators are strong. Hygiene, green goals, cost savings. How has the tech itself kept up? And, despite all that, what's still holding the market back in some areas?
The tech advancements have been pretty rapid, actually. You're getting these super energy efficient models now. Many have HEPA filtration. There's high-grade filters that trap tiny particles, even viruses, plus automatic shutoff. And some even have IoT capability, so they can connect online, track usage, flag problems remotely. In places like North America and Europe, you're seeing quieter, low-energy models become almost standard in nicer offices or restaurants. Initial washroom hygiene, for instance, they launched the Luna Dry range back in 2022. Sleek design, UV anti-scratch finish, dries hands in 12 seconds. So yeah, performance and looks.
Right, that tech sounds impressive, but the upfront cost, that's got to be a barrier surely, especially for maybe smaller places or buildings with older wiring. And what about that lingering, the germ thing? Do people still kind of worry about air dryers, even with filters?
Exactly. That upfront investment is definitely a hurdle, particularly for older buildings or maybe smaller businesses, price-sensitive markets. And yes, public skepticism, it's still a factor, a pretty big one for some. Even with HEPA filters, antimicrobial coatings, some people just remain wary about bacteria being blown around. That's why you still see paper towels preferred in some medical settings or food prep areas. And there's another key thing. They need power, stable electricity. So in developing regions where the power grid might be inconsistent, say parts of sub-Saharan Africa, they're just not always practical during outages. That limits things there. So if we connect this all to the bigger picture, current trends are really interesting. Touchless sensors are pretty much the standard now. High-speed, low-contact dryers are definitely favored in busy places like airports, big venues. And ESG principles, environmental, social, governance standards, they're huge. Green building certifications, too. Manufacturers are responding, using recyclable materials, promoting energy ratings to meet standards like LE for green buildings. And aesthetics matter more now. Compact, quiet models, customizable finishes, showing up in boutique hotels, trendy co-working spaces, even apartments. Looking at who's making them, you've got the big global players, Dyson, Panasonic, Excel Dryer, Mitsubishi Electric, folks like that. They're all focusing on, well, digital features, sustainability, and pushing into emerging markets. And interestingly, the Asia-Pacific region, especially China and India, it actually dominates the market right now. That's really driven by fast urbanization, growing middle classes, and government pushes on hygiene.
So, wow, there it is, a simple hand dryer. Turns out it's this whole mini ecosystem of tech, health concerns, economics, design, all rolled into one. It's kind of wild, isn't it? How much is going on behind something you probably use without a second thought? Maybe next time you're drying your hands, you'll think about those forces: hygiene, tech, sustainability, global markets, all shaping that simple moment. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other everyday objects have these incredibly complex stories hidden just beneath the surface? Something to think about.